Squad-wise, injuries, I can't imagine Joe's going to be anywhere near playing anytime soon.
No, Joe, bad one, snapped a couple of ankle ligaments, so it's incredible the fact that he managed to try and play on for a few more minutes and did a 40-yard sprint before coming off. So yeah, unfortunately we've lost Joe.
And another club appealed against Rob's red card. What's the outcome of that?
Unsuccessful, so unavailable.
Yeah, so which it does leave you in a bit of a hole in positions. Does anybody else pick up a knock that's going to keep them out or cause problems?
No, the rest all came through it okay. So yeah, from that perspective, it was just Joe and Rob that are unavailable.
Okay, and there were a couple of players, certainly Cam on the bench that was there, and we know he's not necessarily 100% fit. Are you in a position where you're going to have to take a chance on those? What are they in a position where he or Harry could even play 60, 80 minutes if they needed to?
There's a possibility they could get minutes. Yeah, I think of course at that stage of the season, the importance of the game is that when you look at it for so long now, I've had to manage such a tight squad, a small squad. It's been challenging at times to do that, but we all the way along we've had to take risks that for me are calculated, and we'll be doing that tomorrow night. I'm desperate to go into the game and give absolutely everything to obviously overcome a difficult challenge. But yeah, Pringy and Corns are obviously having an extra few days are in a better spot than what they were pre the home game. Yeah,
because I guess they're playing devil's advocate. There'll be those who say, actually, given the situation, is it worth taking a risk on a players that hopefully are going to play a lot of football for you next season?
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely not down and out. I think that has to be the mindset of everybody. It's funny, I was naturally you tend to look at comebacks and the history of comebacks, and gone back through loads, and spoke the other night around obviously League One playoff a few years ago. You go back to even the Champions League final, which we were laughing about this morning, 2005, which the Milan-Liverpool one. We were chatting with a few of the lads about that, which was quite funny because there's quite a few of the lads that were born just after 2000. So there was a few that were either not born or still in nappies when that game happened. So that's the beauty of it. I think if you throw the towel in now, I think that speaks volumes about you as a person and as a professional. So like I said, I've said it from day one coming here, I've had to fight to get into the position I'm in. Having had numerous setbacks, not making it as a player, etc. So for me, I'll be fighting until the final whistle tomorrow night, and I expect the same with the lads. And that has to be underpinned by a huge amount of belief.
And I'm sure they can check it out on YouTube in terms of 2005 for those of the younger members, but certainly that evening was driven by a particular player in Stephen Gerrard, and it doesn't have to be about one player, but it does need a number of your players to really step up and produce their absolute best if you're going to overcome the odds.
Yeah, definitely. We need that. And that's the bit, there's no expectation or pressure on us. Nobody expects us to get anything from tomorrow night. So for me, it's can you look at yourself in the mirror and know you gave everything? I think that's the biggest bit of your behaviours, how you go about it, the fight you show, the passion, that has to be built into you. And knowing this group and showing it, it was only how long ago was Preston? However long ago that was, we know we're 2-0 down. With so much to play for, we got it back to 2-2, which we have to use those experiences and that belief and go into it. It's half time. They scored 3 in a leg. Why can't we?
Being resilient is really important for any sort of professional sports person, but their heads must have been so down on Thursday night. How difficult has it been getting them back up to where they need to be to do what you're asking them to do?
Yeah, of course you have to. I think it's one of those. We can speak around the importance of the game and the opportunity, but of course naturally the lads have worked so hard and fought so hard to get to get here. That naturally, then when probably the manner and the feeling and the frustration of the game, and it kind of like I said, Sheffield United do deserve a huge amount of credit. To go and score 3. That's not easy. We've done it before. We've played against 10 men and we know how difficult it is. So credit to them. But at the same point, I think in terms of us and the way we go about it and the toughness that we've got in the group, like I said, we will keep fighting, we'll keep believing.
And too long in the tooth to expect you to tell us what the plan is, but you need to score 3 goals to get yourself back into the tie. There's different ways of going about that, but going too gung-ho against a good team could cause you problems as well. Is that a balance you've been trying to strike? Yeah,
you have to be a little bit mindful of that, especially when you're looking at, you look at the players they've got injured, you then look at their bench and their starting lineup. Such a strong squad. That you see the other night, the threats they carry. We have loads of control, and within 2 seconds they're in on goal and with a clear shot. So, of course, it takes 2 seconds to score a goal. I think that's the important bit, and it doesn't have to be in the first 5 minutes. Of course, as the game goes on, the clock ticks. The earlier the better. But at the same point, what you don't want to do is then go and concede. So, of course, there's finding a fine balance between trying to score, trying to create, being a bit more aggressive and purposeful in attack. At the same point, not leaving ourselves vulnerable and open because they're so dangerous on counters.
They were really aggressive in terms of leaving players forward and trying to stop you from playing out, which it wasn't what they'd done in certainly the matchup at their place. Is that something you're going to have to show bravery? Because if they do the same sort of thing again, to get through them, you're probably going to have to play through the lines and play some tricky passes.
Yeah, we did it up their place. I thought a really good job of that when we played them up there earlier in the year. So we know it's going to be an extremely difficult game. But we've done the work. We watched the game back. We had a meeting this morning about it. And it comes down to that. It very much comes down to the behaviours for me. Like the level of focus, the bravery that we've got, the intensity that we're willing to run at and fight and compete at. And they're the bits. We went through some tactical stuff, but it has to be underpinned by the behaviours for me. That's the most important bit. Showing a real element of, I know the lads will do it because they have, but the fight, the passion, the pride in wearing the shirt, a huge part of tomorrow night's about that as well. And
obviously it's a tough situation, everybody knows that, but this team has done so much this year and achieved a lot. You want to, if it's going to be your last match of the season, to go out and show the team that you have been, not perhaps what happened in the second half on Thursday night.
Yeah, like I said, the outcome tomorrow night won't define what I think of this group and the season we've had. And that by no means am I conceding anything, and that's the message. The outcome will be the outcome when we get there to the end of the game. I think, rather than, of course, going into it, you have to believe, you have to, back yourself as well. I think, that's really important. But yeah, for me, we won't be focusing on the outcome. It's knowing that we're going into a game that we have to perform at our best, as you said, and we have to, we have to find a way to score goals.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Liam, you mentioned to Ed on Thursday about a few of the goals you've conceded recently feeling they've been quite soft. Do you think that's a result of the stretch numbers at the back, or just a few individual errors, or is it just a case of so many players have played so many minutes?
I think probably a combination of all that. We stripped the squad right back in January, and when you look at it, least number of players used in the league. So naturally, the knock-on effect of that is that the group we have got, really, really high in terms of minutes, which is good and bad. That we've got a really tight-knit group. Everybody feels close to the squad, but a couple of injuries, and you find the position. We're in the other night where you're scrambling to try and put a back line together. So of course, it's not ideal, but at the same point, I think it's one of those. I think the biggest strength in us is our culture and the lads we've got and how tight they are, and people being ready to grab the opportunity. And we'll, like I said, we'll see tomorrow night in terms of what the lineup looks like. But anyone that starting or is on the bench knows they have a huge part to play, so they all have to be ready to go.
Is there a slight frustration from your point of view that you ended up in that situation slightly with letting players go in January?
Yeah.
And ended up with short numbers?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
How did you? Obviously, it was a frustrating second half. But how did you think Hayden stepped in? Obviously, it was a bit of a reshuffle, a bit of a change system. How did you feel they coped?
Yeah, like I said, I thought the first 25 minutes, the second half was okay. I thought, we restricted them. They were, they had a lot of the ball, but in areas that we dictated to. And then, like I said, the manner of the goals was slightly frustrating. I think it was on us. I think, just a little bit reactive rather than working a little bit harder earlier to kill a space or to be in a position to, block a cross or, stay on your man on a set piece. Just little bits that, even more so when you play against such high-level players, if you get the little bits wrong, you get punished for it. Sometimes you can get away with it. When you play against the calibre of opposition that we did the other night, you get punished for it. So it's very much that year. It's quite often when you look at the game, it's not major things. It's little bits, little lapses in concentration that end up costing you. So, but we've had that before, and we work and we progress, we develop, we sit down, we have difficult conversations, we show the video, we have chats, and the biggest bit is reminding the lads what they've achieved and how good they are. They've been incredible this year and created so many fantastic memories for so many people. Let's try and create another one tomorrow.
I promise I'm not trying to get you in trouble with referees. You mentioned the appeal was unsuccessful. Do you get much back with those when you submit an appeal like that? Do they explain that decision-making process at all?
Possibly. I've only had the decision at the minute. I haven't had a formal email of as to the ins and outs and whys. So that's all I know at the moment.
How is Joe in himself? Because he must be gutted to have got through, managed the injury and got through to the stage he was. He must be really disappointed.
Yeah, do you know, I haven't. The lads were off yesterday. It was important to switch off, so I didn't see him yesterday. And then he's got an appointment today and tomorrow. So I haven't actually managed to see Joe yet. He was off on the day after the game just because he was in a boat, and there's not a lot, in terms that he couldn't do at home. So he's gutted. He'll be gutted. You could see his reaction coming off the other night. How devastated he was, but he'll be a loss naturally. He's had probably a bit of a bitty season for him, but I really felt the last from Burnley onwards, you really saw the best of him. And I thought he was, you know, hugely influential in getting us, you know, into the top 6. And yeah, naturally, when you lose someone of his leadership, his drive, his, you know, the aggression he shows, you know, that he brings some, you know, some real qualities to the team. But you know, at the same point, as I've always said, it opens the door for someone else.
And you've got quite a few players that can play in that role. That must, George, Marcus, there's a real wealth of options for you to pick from there.
Yeah, so it's an area of the pitch where we've obviously got depth, we've got options, etc.
I know there's still a big game to play in this season, but obviously we're heading into the back end of the season. Considering the work and progress you and your team have made this season, from your point of view, how important is it that you keep the nucleus of that squad over the summer? Because that's not always been easy, has it?
No, I'm not even concentrating on any of that in the minute, to be honest. I think for me, really important. All my energy is going into tomorrow night. I want to do absolutely everything and leave everything out there to try and overturn it. Believe in this group and that they can. And then for me, after the game, then we reassess. If we can get through, great. If not, then you know, I think it's then obviously sit down and see where things are at.
How much can you take from the game up there? Because you probably really should have won that game, shouldn't you?
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, I think we performed. I really enjoyed how we played that night. You know, real control, but carried real threat. And even that night, if you look at the chances they had, quite often it was on counters and us turning it over, and them doing a really good job of regaining and counter-attacking. So they're the bits in terms of the, you know, we have to take belief from that first game and the learning from the first game. You know, the occasion, the atmosphere, because obviously there was a huge amount on the line for both sides at that point. So we have to rely on experiences like that to make sure going into tomorrow we're in the best place possible. And
backed by a sold out away end, consider the fans have enjoyed this season. They've got a big part to play as well, don't they?
Yeah, massive. Like I said, even after the other night, I'm sure everybody can see how hurt and how frustrated and how annoyed I was after the game. But you know, when you look at it, the fans were phenomenal at the end. Phenomenal. You know, I have to say a massive thank you for them for after that and everything this season. And again, I think, you know, like tomorrow night we need them. Going to be huge. You know, naturally that lads come out and hear everybody get behind them and that roar, and let's leave it all out there. Let's give everything.